Good evening and thank you for joining us. The OCPC's investigation into Thunder Bay Police leadership is now underway, and calls from lawyer Chantel Bryson to suspend Chief Sylvie Hoth have been made loud and clear.
But those issues were not discussed at today's Police Service Board meeting. Instead, the focus was on programs to support officers and on confidential information being leaked to the media. Alex Flood has the details.
While the elephant in the room may not have been addressed at Tuesday's meeting, some details did come to light surrounding a breach of confidentiality among the Police Services Board. A memorandum from the board's Integrity Commissioner was presented with the accusation that a member leaked private information from a closed session. Board Secretary John Hannam says there have been articles in the media that suggest one of their members shared classified information, which allowed outside sources to acquire sensitive intel. Hannam warned members that sharing such information is unacceptable and problematic.
Several times over the last few months, and certainly over the last week or so, there have been media reports that directly reference confidential documents presented to this board in closed session. And so we have a problem.
Very well written report. I think it's important for all board members to recognize that we do have an oath that we have taken and a duty to serve and protect the integrity of the investigation process and the information before us. It is confidential and we need to respect that.
Meanwhile, Chief Sylvie Hoth provided a monthly update on several reports, including a 10-step action plan for harassment in the workplace. The chief says given the challenges they're facing, those 10 steps will ensure the force has the proper training and resources in place going forward. Hoth adds there are many programs and initiatives that exist within the membership to support their officers' physical and mental health.
I've given you almost 2 pages of things that have been actualized as far back as 2015 when we created the peer support critical incident position, all the way to very recently where we've reintroduced, for example, the chaplaincy program and anything else from yoga for first responders at the station to the current collective agreement that speaks to unlimited counseling and various resources to our members.
Board Chair Kristen Oliver says they will also be introducing a psychological wellness program, which is aimed to align with the board's strategic plan to help better support officers. Those details will be released at the next Police Services Board meeting in March. Alex Flood, TBT News.
City Council has delayed its vote to confirm a 5-day pay suspension for at-large member Aldo Roberto. Roberto wasn't in attendance for last night's meeting, and councillors want him to be present when that vote takes place. Last night's agenda did, however, include zoning amendments for Mission Island at the site of the former OPG power plant. Vasilios Bellows reports.
The meeting was meant to see a ratification vote on the Aldo Roberto sanction for his controversial Facebook post, but Roberto was unable to attend Monday night's meeting, so the vote was pushed back. The at-large councillor had emailed his colleagues asking them to wait until he was present to carry out the ratification. Councillor Andrew Folds was among those who thought it was a fair request.
Regardless of how we voted last week and how difficult I think all of us found last week, one of the key things I think out of this is respect. And so I totally support Councillor Roberto being present.
The unanimous vote pushes the decision off until the March 14th meeting. If Council ratifies it then, it will effectively confirm Roberto's 5-day pay suspension. Also on the agenda, and what sparked the longest discussion, was the zoning change for the former OPG property. The power plant on Mission Island is currently being demolished. The rezoning was approved by Council, and while it does not confirm a specific use for the site, it expands what it can be used for. This includes data centers, chemical storage, manufacturing, and more. Councillor Kristen Oliver noted how important public consultation is, especially considering how many people will be impacted.
It's a limited area in essence of people that have the opportunity to sort of chime in and share their thoughts on it. But when you look at where this particular property is located, and if you did like a 3-kilometer radius sort of thing, a lot of the noise impacts would be impacting the West Fort Ward, especially around Syndicate forward west.
On the forefront of the minds of many in the community is what will the site be used for. and how exactly this will impact the area environmentally. Ian Bartels is the president of Budget Demolition and stressed this is something that is important to him and his team as well.
We weren't awarded this initially in the purchase sale offering. That's because we didn't have an end use plan, because we said we're going to focus our energy on improving the site and increasing the value on the site. Our intent is, of course, to make money, but never at the cost of the local environment or the community.
Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
The Thunder Bay District Health Unit has declared a COVID-19 outbreak at the shelter house. There are now 9 active outbreaks across the district. And a correction to the information we brought to you yesterday. One of those outbreaks is at the Chartwell Retirement Residence on Arundel Street, not at the Chartwell facility on Hilldale Road, as reported at that time. COVID numbers are up today at the Regional Health Science Centre. There are now 48 people in hospital, with 12 in the ICU. The overall hospital occupancy rate is nearly 105%, and ICU occupancy is nearly 82%. Hospital officials say they need to continue to monitor the local numbers before resuming non-urgent surgeries, despite the province giving hospitals the green light to do so last week.
Yesterday, Ontario announced that it's accelerating its COVID-19 reopening timeline. And today, Premier Doug Ford made his desire to get back to normal abundantly clear, venting some frustration about the pandemic and restrictions. Colin DeMello has more.
After 2 long years, Premier Doug Ford seems to have reached his limit.
Everyone's done with this. Like, we are done with it. We got to learn to live with this and get on with our lives. I bet if I asked every single person in this room, do you want these damn masks or do you want them off? They want them off.
That frustration being felt by Ford resulted in faster timelines for the economic reopening. In just 2 weeks, Ontario will scrap nearly all COVID-19 measures, including the proof of vaccination requirements. The Premier says people will just have to be careful.
You can go to Costco, you can go to Walmart, you can go shopping. You know, you don't know if the person has a shot beside you or not, but we also know that it doesn't matter if you have 1 shot or 10 shots, you can catch COVID.
The province's science advisors say the Premier's comments about the vaccine are in fact correct.
At this point with Omicron, unfortunately, it no longer is effective at preventing transmission.
The government had 2 choices: eliminate proof of vaccination or change the definition of a fully vaccinated person to 3 doses. There are still millions of people in Ontario who don't have a 3rd dose, and scientists say millions can't get the booster because they were recently infected.
That would mean that if we move to a 3-dose vaccine certificate, a huge number of people who had done everything right, they'd been vaccinated, but they still got sick with Omicron, suddenly would be excluded from public spaces. And, you know, for most of us, that's just not acceptable.
And for a pro-vaccine Premier, that position extends to the unvaccinated as well.
Sure, there's the rebel rousers, and then there's just hardworking people that just don't believe in it. And that's their choice.
A choice that was once unacceptable in a mostly vaccinated Ontario.
And that was CTV's Colin DeMello reporting. As the province prepares to enter the next phase in the reopening plan on Thursday, the head of the Northwestern Health Unit has some concerns about the resulting impact in that part of the region. The area's case count remains stubbornly high at 328 cases as of yesterday, and the NWHU's positivity rate is still the highest in the province at 22.4%. While the majority of other health units have seen significant declines. Medical Officer of Health Dr. Kit Young-Hoon says while she's happy businesses can begin returning to normal, the health unit will be keeping a close eye on the local COVID-19 statistics.
Potentially worsen our numbers, so I think that's something we'll be looking at closely over the next 2 weeks, is to see what the impact this reopening is going to have on our epidemiology and our statistics and of course our hospitalization rates.
Young-Hoon conscious that even though restrictions are lifting soon, it's important to remain cautious and make the effort to follow ongoing public health measures.
The City of Thunder Bay is busy trying to recruit new staff for the Canada Games complex. The facility's operating hours are still significantly reduced as the complex lost many of its part-time staffers during the latest lockdown. The complex reopened January 31st when the province relaxed its COVID-19 restrictions, but instead of opening at 5:45 a.m. on weekdays as usual, the doors have stayed closed until 4 in the afternoon. The complex does open earlier on the weekends at 8 a.m. The city's acting supervisor of aquatics, Callie Graham, says the reduced hours are due to student staffing shortages, as many part-timers wanted to keep working during the shutdown and got hired elsewhere. Despite a revolving door of staff throughout the pandemic, Graham anticipates the situation will improve in the near future, as they're already interviewing and training new staff. She's hopeful the complex will be able to offer more regular hours starting next week.
Longtime local business Happy Times Tours will no longer be running its charter bus department by month's end. Officials with the business have confirmed the decision, saying it was an emotional day. The company has been operating charter buses and regular bus tours to the United States and across Canada for decades, but that will come to an end on February 28th. The COVID-19 pandemic is being cited as the reason for the getting rid of the buses, as the vast majority of the business related to cross-border travel. Happy Time will continue to offer services as travel agency. Thunder Bay Tourism Manager Paul Pepe says it's an unfortunate loss for the city at a time when tourism numbers from cruise ships, sports, and conventions are likely to rise.
Has been probably one of the most hardest hit sectors, and one that is taking the longest to come back on the transportation and tour side. So to lose inventory, lose motor coach inventory in the community that are used by sports teams, by tour groups, is certainly something that saddens us.
Pepe says they'll work with other businesses and entrepreneurs to fill the gap left by the closure of Happy Time Leasing.
Students with the Environmental Club at Pope John Paul II School are doing their part to ensure a greener future. The kids have been collecting used styrofoam so it can be properly recycled at a new local factory. The collection effort went into high gear last month and has seen many students bringing in pieces of styrofoam of all sizes every day. They've already filled up a large cardboard bin, much of it coming from packaging for electronics and appliances. The styrofoam is being given to Eco Carbon Foam in Oliver Papoonge, which just received certification for its recycled foam insulation products. The students involved with the club say they're proud of the work that they've done.
It just feels really nice that we can make this different in all these things that we're saving from going into the landfill, things that we will be helping towards our planet.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the amount of styrofoam that we actually got and that we're still collecting. I did not think that we'd get this much, but I was surprised and I'm happy.
We wanted to do something local. We wanted to do something to make a difference in the world and reduce that carbon footprint.
The collection bin was emptied this afternoon and the students plan to have it filled again very soon. Officials at Eco Carbon Foam say they're hoping to recycle used styrofoam from around the region in the future.
After a 2-year hiatus, the polar bear plunge will soon be back in Thunder Bay, with locals jumping into the freezing cold waters of Lake Superior for a good cause. The popular community event is scheduled to take place on April 9th at the Marina Park Boat Launch. The polar plunge was canceled in 2020 and 2021, mainly due to the pandemic. This year's fundraiser will be in support of the Special Olympics Thunder Bay, Roots to Harvest, the local CNIB, and for the first time, Pro Kids. The plunge will look different this year as the organizers navigate COVID restrictions by spreading out the jump times and encouraging people to watch it on a live stream. Plunge Committee member Erin Beagle is happy the event can move forward this year, as the fundraising is very important for her organization.
I can speak personally from Roots to Harvest. This last 2 years, we've lost over $100,000 in fundraising because we can't run events. And the community has stepped up to help us in other ways, but we want to build community through these. Like, it's way more fun doing this together. Getting kids out here, getting companies out here so that they can plunge is just, like, that's really what it's all about. So we're pumped.
Most people, I think, are honestly crazy to be doing this, especially at minus 25. Seeing them in swim shorts and crazy suits, it's like, do you really want to do this or do you not want to do this?
And they all say yes.
Organizers hope 300 people will sign up to plunge like in the years past. Anyone can join the plunge or support a participant by going to thunderbaypolarbearplunge.com.
Well, Mitch, it's a good thing they're waiting.